Post-match chat with chaps for that Millwall podcast where it finished at the Den. Millwall 0, Birmingham City 1. And we were all brought back down to earth quite quickly, weren't we? I mean, if you didn't think we were going to drop some points in the game last night, then you can't have been supporting Millwall long enough, because we all knew what was going to happen last night and we weren't going to have another easy win, back-to-back wins going into tonight's games. Obviously, as I'm recording this on Wednesday night, with a 6-point cushion against the chasing pack. We always knew we would make it difficult for ourselves, and we did. And I'm going to do something slightly different on this recording. I'm not going to necessarily analyse the game and talk you through all the chances and things like that. I'm just going to analyse the situation we find ourselves in, and then talk about a few players. So it's going to be slightly different. I've got no idea how long this is going to run for. I haven't really prepared, so we'll see how it goes. But I want to start off by the only prep I've done is I've got 3 stats, and to me, these 3 stats really define the sort of last sort of period of games. So the first stat is in our last 6 games, we failed to score in 5 of them. And in that time, we've had over 90 shots on goal. And we've only scored 2 goals as a result of those over 90 shots. That's stat number 1. Stat number 2, we have only won 4 of our last 13 home games. So I think there's a bit of a myth about Millwall being a difficult place to come in the last sort of 13 games, because we've only won 4 of them. And that goes back all the way to the game home to Hull, when they had a man sent off and still managed to get a 0-0 draw against us. And then the third stat, which is one I put on Twitter last night, was we've only won twice when we've had 50% possession or more. And that was against Watford, and then the home game against Rotherham when we won 3-0. So for the job I do in my day-to-day basis, I spend all my time looking at information, data and trends, and then trying to sort of analyze it. So that's why I always like to do this with data. And to me, those 3 stats tell me certain things. And that is, we can't score. No. Ultimately, what they boil down to is we have a serious conversion problem at the top of the field. That's the first thing. The second thing is, when teams make it difficult for us, we have no way of breaking them down. And then the third thing is, when teams give us the ball, i.e. make it difficult for us, we don't have another way of playing. And that was what happened last night, ultimately. Birmingham, fair play to them. They came, and they'll probably see that as a perfect away performance. Scored a goal. We'll talk about the goal in a moment. And let's be fair, they had 2 other decent chances. There was a chance 10 seconds after the restart with Kedra, who caused problems all night. I don't know why they took him off. He must have been injured. With a sort of dipping shot that was deflected off Cooper. And then when we were chasing the game, admittedly we were chasing the game, but Hogan cleaned through on goal. And to be fair to George Long, that comes out and makes a very good save. So it was a perfect away performance. What I will say about Birmingham is, and I don't blame Birmingham, if I'm honest. I really don't, because if you can get away with it, you do it. But the time wasting and the lack of control that the referee had on the game last night was a shambles. It wasn't the reason we lost, and it wasn't, at the end of the day, we probably could have been playing for another 90 minutes and we wouldn't have scored. But a couple of things. First of all, their time wasted started from the first half. The real evidential time wasting was from around the 50th minute, when it was become really obvious. And the referee warned the keeper. However, that's all he did. He warned him once on around 50 minutes and never did anything else after that. He didn't. He needed to book the keeper and assert his authority. It was just absolutely shambolic. That's the first mistake. The second mistake is that how on earth he got that time added on at the end. I think it was 5 minutes. It should have been at least like 8. There were 6 subs. They took forever to go off the pitch. You had their time wasting antics. I have no idea it wasn't 7, 8, 9 minutes. So that was the second one. It was mind-boggling. And then the third one is, I could be wrong, but I am almost certain that when Jutkovic got taken off as a substitute, they played the rest of the game without a captain on the pitch, because Ruddy was captain. He then got substituted and gave the armband to Jutkovic. Jutkiewicz went off at the other side of the pitch and kept the armband on. And I'm pretty sure they played the rest of the game without a captain. Now, obviously, who gives a monkeys? But I'm sure from the referee's perspective, that's their job to control. And again, it just shows how useless they bloody were. And then you had the other point where John Ruddy went down and we could have taken a quick throw and they wouldn't let us. There might be something in the rules of the game there. I don't know. But I very rarely talk about referees. And I have to say, I thought it was embarrassingly bad last night. So that's my little take on the referees. So look, I'll sort of go into a few bits and then I'll sort of round up on why I sort of brought those stats up and to me, what my key takeaway from it all was. But so again, huge opportunity for us last night to go 6 points ahead against a team that, let's be fair, they played Sunderland at the weekend. So they've travelled up to Sunderland. Apparently they played pretty well and have then had to travel all the way down for a Tuesday night game against us. So, you know, fair play to them because that's a lot of bloody travelling in 3 days. And to come and get 3 points at Millwall, which is a difficult place to come, they'll be really, really, really pleased. I have to say, before I get on to us, there were some good players for Birmingham last night. Birmingham's midfield is very good. It is very, very good. The likes of Kedra, who I said in January should have tried to sign when Sheffield United let him go back to Brighton. He's a good player. Obviously, you can tell Bellingham's potential. Janino Bakuna's full of energy. Obviously, they've got Chong, who's we might hate him, but he's a good player. And at the back, Bielik's a good player at this level. At the back, Roberts is solid, particularly when you just pump balls up to him. They've got a very experienced backline who managed the game very, very well. It has to be said. They dealt with everything we threw at them. And their midfield's a decent midfield, is what I'm trying to get at. They're not a bad side, and I think their recent form is better than their position in the table. But we still got to be beating teams like this at home. We have to, and it's no excuse that we have to be beating teams like Birmingham at home. It's the bottom line. So a decent side nonetheless. So from our perspective, oh, and by the way, they were one of the biggest physical teams I have ever seen down at the Den. They were massive. Their centre halves were huge. Bielik's massive. Their fullbacks aren't small. Jutkiewicz is big. So they're a real sort of big physical side, and I think they stood up to the test yesterday. But anyway, from our perspective, I think Gary Rowett made 2 mistakes yesterday. And everyone's got an opinion on this, by the way, and this is just mine, right? So if you disagree with what I say, brilliant. That's your opinion, and that's what football's all about. So my opinion is his first mistake was the starting lineup. So I would not have started Vogie yesterday. I would have started Burke, and I think his performance merited that. I think he was one of his best games in a Mill shirt last night, to be perfectly honest with you. But I wouldn't have started Vogie. I still wouldn't have started SA. Again, my opinion. For me, he's not ready to start games like this, where we have to win and we have to get 3 points. Now, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing. He starts Vogie, we still don't win. So I get the argument of how do you know until you try? And I totally understand that. Just for me, if I was managing, now is not the time to try it because I've not seen this saviour that a lot of people go on about around SA. I don't think he's as amazing as everyone is hyping him up to be. I think he will be. And I think he's going to be some player. I just don't think he's ready yet. And people are wanting to see things and kind of seeing it, if that makes sense. There has been no end product. Now, I'm not saying that Vogie and the like have got end product. I'm not suggesting that. But for me, last night, what I would have done is I would have started Bennett. If Bennett's not fit, I'd have started Watmore, given him 45 and given SA 45. Or something like that, depending on how we were. So for me, the first mistake is starting Vogie. He is a defensive-minded forward, and I thought he was really poor in the first half. Incidentally, I think he actually played pretty well in the second half before we took him off. But in the first half, I thought he was terrible. That's my view on it. So I would have made a change. So that was the team. Obviously, Birmingham go ahead. I have to say, for the first 20 minutes, I thought Birmingham were a much better side. We just didn't get going. We just kept lumping balls up there. And Bradshaw's going to struggle against most centre-halves, but the likes of Kevin Long and Mark Roberts, they are absolute units. You've got no chance. Absolutely no chance. So it was really poor. And you could tell just by looking at Rowett, that was not how we were set up to play. Yes, we're direct, but we were just too direct and too flat, and it was poor. We had a few chances in the first half. I thought Burke was really bright. He put the ball a couple of times, and it wasn't even shown on the extended highlights, into good areas, but there was no one anticipating it and no one sort of following up. And I'm just reading here some of the chances that we had. No, Joe, I'm not going to go into all the different chances because I'll be here all day. We had 21 shots on goal, so I'm just not going to bother. The main chance was the Cooper header in the first half, and I think that's another thing. I'll come on to it in a moment, but I don't think Fleming and Bradshaw are the greatest of games. But they almost deserve a day off because of the amount of goal contributions they give in this season. Outside of those two, our goal contributions is a shambles. And the likes, how many goals has Cooper scored this year? I'm sorry, but a 6'6" centre half has got to do better with some of the opportunities we're getting. The amount of corners we had last night and we didn't put any of them away. Coincidentally, last night maybe is the one fixture where you would sort of let them off because how big Birmingham was. But we usually have a physical presence over most teams. And the likes of Cooper, Hutch, Wallace and Danny Mack from a assist perspective, it's just not been there this season. You know, Scott Malone's hardly played, and I think he's our third, after Vogie, our fourth assist and goal scorer ranked, which is just shocking. So we get to half time, and I said to my mates that I go with, I think Rowett need to make a change then. And that, to me, is the second mistake he made. I personally felt that the game was calling out for Styles at half-time because what you needed, we were panicking, we were just lumping balls up there. What you needed was someone calm, collected, with a bit of composure to get his foot on the ball, who's got the ability to pick a pass, find the right pass, not slow the game down, but in a more advanced position than, say, Saville does, really start to open the game up. And obviously, when he did come on, you saw what he was capable of. But that, to me, Styles was the change I would make. Now, if you don't agree with that change, fine. But I think we can all say there should have been changes at half-time. Rowett doesn't make changes at half-time. And to be fair, the first 20 minutes, I felt we were really good. Sorry, I've got emails pinging off in the background. I apologise. I thought we were really good for the first 20 minutes. And actually, when Rowett did then make the subs, we actually had a 5-10 minute period where I think we were poor because the subs failed to get into the game. So it was one of those damned if you do, damned if you don't. But so I don't think once the second half had restarted, Rowett made changes too late in the context of how we were playing. We had them pegged in their own half, loads and loads of chances. And I understand why he waited before making the subs. The subs were actually ready 10 minutes before, but then he told them to sit back down because we were all over him. So again, just my opinion, for me, if he doesn't make the subs at half time, 50, 60 minutes into the game, actually, we're playing well, we're all over him, and we should have scored. So I kind of get that. And it's damned if you do, damned if you do, damned if you don't. So that's kind of my view on the sort of two mistakes for me that Rowett made. We had umpteen chances yesterday. I think the sort of 2 or 3 clear chances were, first of all, Burke's chance in the second half, where I don't think he does much wrong, to be honest. He sort of, if anything, he maybe tries to pass it into goal as opposed to sort of putting his foot through it, but it's a good opportunity. Keeper makes a good save. I wouldn't say it was anything special. But Bradshaw, for me, has the 2 most gilt-edged chances. It was a good ball into the box. I can't remember who from. Bradshaw, low down, near post, unmarked, fails to get a proper connection on it. Any sort of connection on it, that goes into the net because of that distance to the goal. The second opportunity that again, Bradshaw had was Styles, really nice link-up play, 1-2 with Fleming, shot from the edge of the box. Keeper doesn't hold it, comes out to Bradshaw. To be fair to the keeper, he reacts quickly, comes out, spreads himself, but Bradshaw's just got to be composed and sort of dink it over or dink it around the keeper, and he doesn't. They were, to me, the most gilt-edged chances we had in the game, and they both fell to Bradshaw, and he missed them both. Now, I'll come on to player ratings and stuff in a moment, but I don't think Bradshaw was great yesterday, especially when you take into account those chances. But let's be honest, we haven't got anyone else, and he kind of deserves a day off. Like, I think he's not a day off, but an off day. That's probably what I meant to say, because he's been brilliant for large parts of the season. He scored 15 goals, and we rely on him, and he gets battered every game, and we play a style of football that doesn't really suit him. And I think he does well. So I'm not going to sit here and slag off Bradshaw. To me, the fault lies with the lack of signing a striker in January. And no, do you know what? I'll just address it now. I was going to come back to it later. So I tweeted this last night, and ultimately, I think it is criminal that we allowed a Phobie to leave. And by the way, I am not saying that Phobie is the player that would have answered all of our problems, because I actually think it got to the stage of his career where other things were more important and he wasn't as interested as he was. And in hindsight, we probably shouldn't have re-signed him in the summer. But that being said, he was there. He was another body. And at this level, he can still compete. We allowed him to go. We put all our eggs in the basket of Kevin Nisbet. That didn't happen, and nothing else did. And ultimately, that is the bottom line as to why, for me, we're not where we need to be, because we're not converting these chances, and that ultimately falls down to the players who are on the pitch. We're creating the chances, and we're not converting them. There is not another team going for the top six, let alone in the league, that has one striker. The only other team that has been pointed out to me on Twitter, which was a fair comment, was Sunderland, because they had, at one point, they had 3 strikers. They had Joe Gelhardt, who's still there now on loan from Leeds, who we were linked with. They had Ellis Sims, and they had Ross Stewart. Ross Stewart got injured, Ellis Sims got recalled, and they were left with only Joe Gelhardt. The difference is they have the likes of Diallo, Roberts, players like that behind. That can play as, centre forwards, and ultimately they play a style where they score loads of goals. So we have one recognised central striker, and to me, that right there is the bottom line. What that game last night was crying out for was either putting 2 in the box, so you have another striker in there that is kind of like feeding off the scraps and the balls that are coming into the box, or a big man, a Matt Smith, something, a plan B. And we don't have a plan B. And whilst I completely agree with quite a few people that said, yeah, we were unlucky last night, and we was. And anyone who listens to this often enough knows I don't ever, I very rarely criticise. We were unlucky, but you can't keep saying we're unlucky when when we see this. That was like Groundhog Day. How many times have we seen us play against these pants teams? They take a lead and we just can't break them down. Hull, we struggled to break down Blackpool. We lost to QPR at home. Huddersfield at home. The Luton blank, I'll ignore because they're Luton. The Hull away game. These are teams are just, we do not know how to break down teams that just sit in. And that's why I brought up those 3 stats at the start, because when teams give us the ball, when teams go 1-0 up, we cannot seem to break them down. And that is all down to the fact, for me, we did not address the crucial striking element in January. I don't really think we did it in the summer. I felt we needed more than one striker in the summer, not just a Phobie. We needed more, and we didn't do it then. So the recruitment, and I think that's run by Alex Aldridge, has a lot to answer for me in the striking department. I actually think Ollie Burke is turning into be a decent signing, and for me, merits his place in the first 11. Duncan Watmore that I've seen so far is not the one that Middlesbrough are up in arms about losing. I've just not seen it. But then he hasn't really started games, hence why I just started him yesterday. Imaku obviously seems to be unlucky and he wouldn't be ready yet anyway. And it's kind of like, that's it. We've not addressed the fundamental problem that we've got of a striker. When is the last time that we went out and signed a successful striker? I can't even think. It must be Bradshaw, I suppose. That would probably be the last one, wouldn't it? Like, if you actually think back season upon season upon season, our recruitment in the attacking in the sort of central striker role is a shambles. So, but look, I've had a bit of a rant and stuff, and I almost don't blame I blame the players, but I just think they're performing to the level that they're at. And when you compare the 11 we've got versus Birmingham, I actually don't think there's much in it. Genuinely, I don't think there is. I don't think we are that much better on paper than Birmingham. I think we are better, but it's not a country mile. So we've got no right to turn up to these games and win. The players are performing to the level, ultimately, I think their abilities. No one can sit there last night and say that there wasn't effort. Everyone was giving everything they've got. No one can say that. And that's why I think maybe the players feel a bit aggrieved that we all walk away from last night booing and whatever. I'm not saying I condone that, but that was kind of the vibe. And everyone's really disappointed and angry. But, you know, Millwall fans are very reactive as a group. And ultimately, it isn't in our hands now. But I stand by what I said a couple of games ago, which is we need 10 points. And as long as 2 of the wins out of the 3 that we need come against Preston and Blackburn, I genuinely think we will still get in the top 6. So whilst it isn't in our hands, I think we need to now go unbeaten for the rest of the season. We need 4 points against Wigan and Blackpool, and then we need to beat Blackburn on the last game of the season. I'm recording this before the games kick off tonight, so maybe I'll be talking bollocks after the end of it, but I still stand by that. So it isn't in our hands, but I don't think it's all over yet. And again, taking a step back, whether we're still in the top 6 tonight or not, what position to be in? When's the last time we were, all right, last season we technically could have got in the playoffs on the last game at Bournemouth, but let's be honest, the chances were slim. We still have a good chance of getting in the playoffs. And this team have shown their resilience. I don't think we've had back-to-back losses since September this season. So I fully expect them to go to Wigan and put a performance in. And Steve Morrison raised some really good points last night on Sky that Wigan and Blackpool have got to come to us, because the only way they're going to stay up is by winning every game. And therefore, they've got to come at us. And if teams come at us, as the stats show, as I said at the start of the show, when we've got less than 50% possession, we win games. And that is why maybe these 2 games suit us. And coincidentally, our away form at the moment is a lot better than our home form. So maybe we get 4 points and this sets up a cracker of a game at home to Blackburn. So it's not all doom and gloom. I just want to point out where I think if we do end up not getting in there, I ultimately think it's down to recruitment. And I think the players are given an honest job. There's a few players that are off form, and I'll go on to some of the players now, but I think they're giving everything, and that's all you can ask. And I think I've covered everything, to be perfectly honest with you. But this is Millwall. And look, I can't go to Wigan, but we're going to Blackpool, and I just hope that we get something out of that Wigan game, so it's still all to play for come the Blackpool game. So I'll go into players. Am I going to give ratings? I don't know. I might just talk about him in general. So George Long. So before I talk about George Long, Danny Mack and Jake Cooper, I'm going to talk about the goal that we conceded. So there is a catalogue of errors in this goal. The first error is Hutch plays an aimless ball forward, which then comes back straight down our throat. And Hutch did that a lot last night. Wasn't the only one, but we just sort of pumping balls up, and I don't know what we were expecting to achieve from it. So that was the first mistake. The second mistake is Danny Mack gets done by Kedra. Kedra sort of spins him. Danny Mack's in a weird position where he's not initially close enough, and then he goes to get close to him too late, and by that point, Kedra's gone. Kedra's then running through on goal, plays in Jutkovic. Jutkovic and Cooper are side by side. Cooper goes to ground. I don't know why he goes to ground. Why doesn't he just try and shepherd him out? So I think that's where Cooper's mistake is. And ultimately, if Long doesn't come out at all, I don't think that goal goes in. So there is a catalogue of errors, and I think it would be very difficult to pin the blame on one of those individuals. That's my interpretation of it. Again, You may have a different view, but ultimately I think it was a catalogue of errors. But what I will say is, as much as that was an error, ultimately we should have scored at least 2 goals anyway. So it kind of negates that. So, this is the problem. We concede a goal, and because we can't score, that's it, game over. And it shouldn't be like that. So anyway, Long. I really struggle with George Long, and I'll be honest, I sort of flip between numerous opinions. All I will say is, I think a lot of the goals we've conceded recently, I wouldn't say they're George Long's fault, but I expect our goalkeeper to do better, which is a very big difference. I don't think you can say that was George Long's fault, but you can say, I expect a Championship goalkeeper that plays for Millwall to do better than that. And I think Bart would. The challenge is, I think Bart's been out of the team too long now, and I don't really know if we would get the same Bart if he did come back in. So I think goalkeeper's a position we need to address next in the summer. But George Long did make a mistake for the goal, but I also think he made a very good save in the second half when Scott Hogan was clean for on goal. So I'll give him a 6. Danny Mack. So I've seen so much on like Hoff and Twitter and stuff like that. I'm not on Hoff, but I sort of read it every now and again. And what I will say about Danny Mack is, class is permanent and form is temporary. Danny Mack will know himself. He's going through a bad period right now. And I think that's clear for all to see. I thought he wasn't his best game again yesterday, and I don't think he's been good for a number of games. However, he is Millwall, and that doesn't mean he gets an easy ride for me, but the lad is Millwall, and we should want him to do well. We want all of our players to do well, but lads who come through our academy, we should want especially to do well. And I think Danny Mack knows that he's not in good form, and I guess for Rowett, it's a case of, if you drop him, does that ruin his confidence more, or does a period out of the team do him wonders? And I honestly don't know the answer to that. I don't know Danny Mack himself, and so I think it's an interesting one. Again, I think he's a very good player, and I think that ultimately he is good enough to be in a top 6 Championship side when he's on form. Unfortunately, at the moment, he's not, and I thought he was quite poor last night, so I'm going to give him a 5. The centre halves, Cooper and Hutch, I'll give him a 6. To me, Cooper's got to do better with the header in the first half. And also, I felt Hutch, Jutkovic won his fair share against Hutch. And on top of that, as I said, they were sort of playing aimless balls forward. So I'll give them a 6. Malone, I'll give a 6. I thought he got forward really, really well. He tried to create. He definitely looked like a threat from going forward. However, the Rabona. What are you doing, Scotty Malone? Like, what are you doing? Now, ultimately, it never made a difference anyway. But I just don't get the mentality of him to do that. I don't understand it. I don't make a big thing of it, because ultimately it will all be forgotten about soon. But I just don't get why you attempt that in that position. But I'll give him a 6, maybe a 6.5, because I actually thought going forward he was quite good. Although his end product again wasn't good, just like it wasn't good from the other side. I'm going to give Billy Mitchell a 7, 7.5. I thought he was probably our best player last night. The effort's there from the boy. Works his socks off. I think he slotted back into the team superbly. Energy against a 3-man midfield that they played, I thought he was good. I think he made one mistake in the game, but overall I thought he was really good and really positive and tried to get the team going. Everyone knows I've been loving Sav recently, but I don't think Sav was up to the standards he's set himself in the last sort of 10 games. So I'll give Sav a 6. And I understand why he was taken off, because if you have to sacrifice someone, I think you need Billy's energy. Yeah, I don't think Sav was great. I'll give him a 6. Fleming, I'm going to give a 5. Sorry, I thought he was ineffective yesterday. I thought he was non-existent for most of the game. And I know people love Fleming, and I do. And I think he's a superb player. He's our best signing for years, and he scored 14 goals, and he will play in the Premier League for me and all this stuff. But again, he's allowed to have an off day. And I thought yesterday was. I just think he was poor yesterday, to be honest. I really do. Vogie, a 5. He was all right in the second half, to be fair, and was playing probably his sort of best football in the second half. But in the first half, he was non-existent, and I felt the team had to carry him. So it probably, based on the first half, would have been a 4. But I felt, as I say, the second half he was okay. Burke, I'm going to give a 7. I thought Burke was good. I really do. I thought we had George Friend in his pocket. I thought he was roasting him all the time, and then we kept switching him sides and stuff. God knows why. I thought Burke was good, and I actually think the last 2 or 3 games he's been one of our better players. And to me, he cemented his place in the team sheet. Yes, his end product isn't always great, but I actually thought he put some decent balls into decent areas yesterday. So other than Billy Mitchell, I thought Burke was our best player, and he was certainly our most creative threat. I would even go as far to say I thought maybe it was his best game in the Millwall shirt last night. But that's just my opinion again. And then Bradshaw, I'll give a 6. The 2 chances he missed, he has to score. But again, I'm not going to sit here and slag Bradshaw or Fleming off because their contribution over the season has been brilliant. In terms of subs, I thought Styles looked really good when he came on, considering how long he's been out. I'm not going to give ratings because he didn't really have a lot of time. What more? I think he needs to start some games because he just seems so ineffective when he comes off the bench. At the minute, I'm not seeing the player that we were sort of hoped to see or promised by Middlesbrough fans. SA, I feel like I have to be careful what I say because so many people are calling for him to start and absolutely love him. Look, I think he's got so much potential, and he's got that much potential at 17. He could go on to be one of our best ever players. That is how much I rate him. However, that doesn't mean to say he's ready to start games like this at the moment, which in my opinion, he's not. Everyone's entitled to their opinion. For me, at the moment, he's not quite there. I actually haven't seen much end product from him, and I worry about how lightweight he is defensively, especially up against experienced players like George Friend or Maxime Collan, who are built and I don't think SA would get much out of him. I'm not saying he shouldn't get more minutes. I just want to make sure I'm really clear on that. And then I think by the time sort of Bennett came on, etc., it was too late. So look, I'm going to leave it there. I've been going for 32 minutes somehow, and I'm still going. A good away performance from Birmingham has to be said. I thought their second goalkeeper, Neil Etheridge, how he's a number 2, I'll never know. He came for everything. He made some good saves. He was dominant. He, took the piss out of the ref because the ref allowed him to. I think he was man of the match. To be fair, their sub-goalie, Neil Etheridge, superb. I think they paid millions for him about 3 or 4 years ago from Cardiff. So he comes from good pedigree. And as I say, he's number 2. I don't know. But good performance from Birmingham. I expect with a few additions, they'll do better than they have done this season next year. And ultimately, I'm not going to take we're unlucky because we've said that so many times now. The players have got to dust themselves down, show their resilience, go again and go and get a result at Wigan. And I have confidence that this group can, not based on how good they are, but just based on their character and resilience, because I honestly think the team is performing at capacity. And ultimately, it's just down to poor recruitment that if we do end up not getting into the playoffs will be the main reason. We simply don't have another striker to go to up top. And when you're chasing a game, that's just criminal. How we didn't replace a Phobie, for me, is criminal. But there you go. Look, I'll leave it there. If you have managed to last this long, thank you very much for listening. Please do like, share, subscribe, all that kind of stuff that I have to say. Won't be at Wigan, but I will hopefully see some of you with still something to play for against Blackpool and Blackburn. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye for now.